You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
Maria Menounos and Bing.com present live from the Kari Feinstein Oscar Style Lounge at the world-famous Mondrian Hotel on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. And streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's Movie Edition. Tonight's AfterBuzz movie is Bridesmaids. We'll break down everything from the making of Bridesmaids to behind the scenes and everything in between. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite movie. It's AfterBuzz TV's Bridesmaids.
Hello, we are here today at the Kari Feinstein Oscar Style Lounge gifting suite at the Mondrian Hotel, and we are here to talk about Bridesmaids. Woo! So excited. I'm Roxy Striar. This is Gabrielle Loren.
What's up,
Mari
everybody?
Fagel, Kristen Snyder.
Hi.
And we want to talk about our favorite scenes in this movie just to get this going and talk about this awesome movie.
What was yours, Roxy, first of all?
Okay, I think that my favorite was, you know, when she goes and she sees the cop and he's not talking to her. She's driving back and forth in the car.
The montage.
The montage. And she finally hits it. I thought that was amazing. Just that scene, small, but it was amazing.
You know what? And I'm sure they did that for 2 days straight. Her just driving past repeatedly, different ways, and that's how they finally got that.
The whole time, she must have been improvising every single trick she did. I would have been scared.
It's just funny because I think they really play up the craziness of her character.
Oh yeah.
And how she really goes to the extreme, and you see that in that specific scene.
It was
I love
amazing.
it. Yeah.
And that's all her. That's all ad-lib, improvisation, fully. And we'll talk about this when we talk about casting and writing and everything. But that was the mainstay of the whole film, was improvisation. So some of our favorite moments were not even scripted.
It's ridiculous, and yeah, of course we'll talk about it later, but they are so smart. I would be sitting there like, if somebody said, okay, say something funny, I'd be like,
A lot of people don't realize how difficult improvisation is. It's very difficult, and they are pretty much coming up with their jokes and their lines on the fly when they're not on the book, going by the script.
It's all
It's
about
really
groundlings.
interesting.
They're
Right?
Yes.
Every single one of them was an Ellie Groundlings except Ellie Kemper, and so that's why she was saying, like, she was the rookie here. All of them are so grounded in improvisation.
Well, in addition to her, also Rose Byrne was a rookie as well,
Yeah.
because she doesn't
She's
have experience with that
completely-
either.
not even like a comedian.
I know, but you get to use your awkwardness in your character, which is amazing.
Well, actually, talking about favorite scenes and Rose Byrne not really being experienced in improv, I thought she did so well in the scene where they're at the engagement party. That was one of my favorite scenes. I forgot to bring that up when we were talking earlier. But they pretty much had, you know, a back and forth, the maid of honor, Annie, and the other friend, and it was Helen. It was the funniest thing because they were like sizing each other up.
The competition
And it was
of
just
the
back
toasting.
and forth, and at first it was like, oh, that's cute, and then it got really uncomfortable, and I loved like the little shots of
my
everybody's
God.
faces in that scene. It was just amazing.
I love that you said uncomfortable, because it was that tense, that awkwardness,
was.
like, wait, is it over? No, it's not over. Wait, is it over? No, it's
You
not
like
over.
want to turn it off, but you're like, it's too funny. I can't. I'm so awkward.
They actually shot the wide shots of the reactions after they shot the whole toast competition.
Right.
How do they?
Which that happens
I
all
mean,
the
that's
time.
great
in filming,
acting,
yeah.
right?
It's incredible. I wouldn't be able to. What about you guys? Scenes?
Okay, my favorite by far, and this was a lot of improvisation on Kristen Wiig's part, was when she got drunk on the airplane. And that scene was so hilarious. And I love it because they talk about how they didn't want to do that cliche, let's go to Vegas, bridesmaids, scene. And so that's why they never even end up making it to Vegas, is because they didn't want to go cliche on it. They were like, okay, so many people, The Hangover, they do Vegas.
Right.
So they never wanted to get to Vegas.
Right.
And the reason they didn't get to Vegas was because of Kristen Wiig and her amazingness, just like talking about civil rights and just like walking back and forth and keep getting kicked out. Like, she's so funny there. I want to see her drunk all the time. Like, I want her drunk.
She was
She's drunk best friend.
amazing in that scene.
Yeah.
When she was interacting with Helen, I thought it was so funny because she was like, "Oh, it's Helen, poor Helen."
I think she had
was
drinks
so
before the
mocking
shoot.
her.
I would have.
Absolutely.
You know what?
Why
Yeah,
not?
that's a good point. I think some
Not sure.
actors, that's probably part of their technique, a shot before their scene,
Method acting. I am telling you, it's the way to go. Play the drunk person. You get to drink on set all day.
You know, Annie Mumolo, who also co-wrote it, that was actually her on the plane beside Kristen, and that was sort of her little cameo in it.
Yeah.
But she was pregnant during filming, so I'm wondering if she wasn't, if she would have had a bigger part. They probably didn't want to put stress on the baby, but I thought that would have been a funny element to play up.
Yeah,
Right.
I was wondering why she didn't have a bigger role either, because she is an actress and an aspiring star. So why
And from
she-
Groundlings.
Right, exactly.
And from
So why
Groundlings.
she would write something, work so hard on it. But I thought that was really respectful of her that she didn't want to steal it away from somebody else because everybody was so perfectly cast.
But she
Right.
plays that pivotal role because she's the one who
Right.
freaks Kristen Wiig out on the plane. Like, I had a dream last night. Like, that's the last thing you want to hear when you're on a plane.
And you-
What was your favorite?
All right, my favorite, you guys are not going to ever think that this would be my favorite because it has to do with character development. And it's really when Kristen's character spends that entire scene that seems like it's 5 minutes long of making that delicate cupcake, which by the way are not her
great.
hands. She
Yes.
wanted everyone to know those weren't her hands. Those were inserts. She didn't film any of the inserts making the cupcakes or the
Push
price
love
tags or
effect,
anything.
where you have somebody
Right.
else editing can do everything crazy.
What made that
Amazing.
scene great was the fact that, she clearly has a passion. Her bakery may have failed, but now she doesn't have an outlet anymore for that passion. And that really is what made us love her because she spent so much time making that only to
Right.
devour it herself.
Right.
But it's nice to see, artists who are still doing their passions on the side. And that scene really made me love her because I still do my passions on the side.
100%. I know we were only supposed to pick one, but you guys reminded me about the scene before the tennis match when they're sitting there talking about how
that was
do people
good.
really change? And they're like, no, I think people do change. And she's like, no,
but
really
they
stay
don't.
the same.
Yeah.
Really, they don't
That
change.
was great.
I loved that one too. I had to throw in two. Is that bad? You guys mad at me? I picked two scenes.
No, but I absolutely love how you brought that up because it shows the Helen Annie characters playing with each other, and I love their interactions.
Yeah.
And it was also nice to see how Helen's kids, her I guess stepkids, felt towards her because they were very disrespectful, and
We
it was
didn't see them
funny
again, though.
because pretty much she didn't have friends,
Right.
and even her own kids didn't like her.
I thought that was crazy. And then they never came back. It was just that one bit. Fuck you, Helen.
Yeah.
The little girl was actually Paul Feig, the director's actual neighbor. That little girl is his
Really?
neighbor. Yeah.
That is so
So
interesting
you're
little
telling
fact.
me
I love
should
it.
move next door to him.
Right?
And then you'll be cast in a movie.
But what's so
pretty
important
much it.
about that is their chemistry, and just the chemistry between all the actresses was really, just during the casting, the filmography, everything is what really made it, because this is a movie about friends, enemies, and that combination of Rose Byrne and Kristen Wiig, that wouldn't have worked with any two other actors.
Right, and speaking of the combination, this whole film came about because Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo had worked together in the past, and they decided to write something, also commissioned because of Judd Apatow, and he had worked on Knocked Up with Kristen Wiig, and after that was filmed, he had asked her, can you write something for us? And let's work on something. And so that's when Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo decided to write this script. It took them an extremely long time.
4.5 years.
Yeah, it's funny. It took them 4.5 years to write, but the first draft only took 6 days. But
Right.
think about how many changes they had made to that
can't believe that.
original script. It's pretty crazy to even think how much work goes into just the script process
These
and the
are
pre-production.
These aren't people who are experienced writers, so I feel like it's like throw the ideas out there. And what did you say, 6 weeks or 6 days?
6 days first
6 days,
draft.
That's crazy.
They
Yeah.
actually
Crazy.
bought
Put it
a
out
book.
there.
They bought a How to Write a Screenplay book by Sid Fields for the formatting and the structure. And Judd actually did this with Steve Carell. This is how 40-Year-Old Virgin came about.
Right.
He liked the way that the audience responded to Steve, and he said, do you have an idea for a movie? And that's how 40-Year-Old Virgin
I
happened.
love that he asked that because I feel like it's so easy to find experienced writers and be like, give me a story. But finding funny people and knowing that they have life experience or ideas in their head,
Right.
and giving them the opportunity, even if they're not writers, and saying, I believe in you and I want you to produce a piece of work, I'm going to help you. Now take the reins.
Right, and then going on that topic, Judd, when he approached the whole Kristen thing, this is an actual Derek quote he said about Kristen Wiig, and I absolutely love it because it touches on the whole writing thing. And he basically said, Kristen is a great writer. A lot of what people love about her work on SNL is that those are sketches that she wrote herself. So it's amazing when you can make a movie where the guiding vision of the movie is the star. I've always felt that when you're in the position where you have a star that has the writing talent also, is when things are truly great. And I think that says it all. It really does.
I mean, having the star of the movie guide the vision of the film, it makes it so natural and realistic. And that's why this movie is so funny, because it's the truth. And what's funnier than the truth?
God, some people are so multi-talented. It's like, how do you do that?
And I find interesting about the fact that you said that they took 4.5 years to write it, is that means they actually started writing it before Hangover and all the hoopla about that, because this kept getting compared. The female Hangover, the all-girl Hangover, and I don't know, how do you guys feel about that?
It was almost offensive, but I don't mean to be offended by it. I want to be like, yes, female power. But every time, it's like when they ask Meryl Streep in interviews and they say, how do you feel that you consistently play this strong female character? She goes, you would never ask a man that question. How do you feel that you play this strong male character? And it's almost like we're digressing because we are talking about how women have got there.
And oh, well, women can be funny. This proves women can be funny. How did it take this long to prove
and
that
why
women can
aren't
be funny?
women funny is my question. I think women are very funny, and this movie proves it. And I'm so happy they went with it. I don't know why Hollywood has these stereotypes, but I think we're slowly breaking down the wall.
I mean, I understand why the Hangover comparison. I mean, it was an all-female cast, like the all-male cast in The Hangover. And also, the plot revolves around a wedding. And so that was where the comparison came from.
I get the comparison too, and I'm not saying that I don't agree with it, but at the same time, I just feel like, you know what I mean? It's almost offensive that this is the first recognized female thing when there have been so many males.
But you know what proves girl power? Is that The Hangover wasn't nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay, and The Hangover wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
Girl power!
So, girl power!
Girl power! And that's why we're doing Bridesmaids.
I agree. We're like the 4 bridesmaids, but
I wanted to wear bridesmaids dresses. They said no.
Well, we're wearing dresses, so that's good enough, I think. But but you're wearing a bridesmaid skirt?
You know, this is very interesting. The story actually came from Annie Mumolo being a bridesmaid for 7 times in 2.5 years. And she was saying the story was hers, and she was actually going to these parties. She was getting these crazy favors, not live animals, which is very irresponsible to hand out after a bridal shower. But she was going home. I want a puppy. She was going home with these expensive, gifts from all her friends' bridesmaid showers, and she was crawling in her window because her door was broken. She didn't have a whole lot of money at that time. And when her friends were like, hey, let's all throw in money and go to Vegas, sometimes she just didn't have the money. And so a lot of finances came into this film, and because of the economic decline, that kind of worked and was really funny played on.
100%.
And you know what?
The price of the dress, every single thing.
This film to create had a budget of $32.5 million, which isn't bad.
That's not very high, especially for an
not
Oscar
high.
film.
It's not high, especially for an Oscar film, though. But at the same time, it's not extremely low.
Right.
And it's funny because films like Superbad and Zombieland, they were comedies as well. They were budgeted at $19 million. And then you have The Hangover Part 2, which is obviously, we were just talking about it. Critics are comparing the two movies, men versus females, the comedians, but it actually had an $80 million budget, so that is a huge difference from the $32.5 million of Bridesmaids, which is very interesting to bring up.
And
the budgets are very different.
Bridesmaids actually grossed, $288 million, which is why people
Close,
were like...
very close to that, worldwide.
And actually, Bridesmaids has made the most money in resales in history, or one of the top in history in resales and in DVDs and everything like that.
It's interesting to me though because I never saw Hangover 2. Did you guys go see
No.
Hangover 2?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I saw it.
I did not, but I loved Hangover. But if Bridesmaids 2 came out, 2 seconds I'd be it.
Absolutely.
So that's how I know.
The problem with sequels is I loved The Hangover, and now I don't love that brand as much because The Hangover 2 is so bad compared to it. It ruined the brand. I mean, what were you going to say about the
Well,
sequels?
the sequels, it's interesting because with the sequel, they do want Kristen Wiig to be a part of it, although she's working on a few other projects. Yes, they are thinking about the sequel. But
they are no longer.
No, well, as of when? Because as of recent, the past few days, the filmmakers are engaging with concepts with different different filmmakers to try and bring on this concept, work with different actresses, but keep Megan as the main star and focal point of the sequel instead of having Kristen Wiig.
Lesson from Hangover 2, if there is a Bridesmaids 2, is scrap the Bridesmaids element of it. You know what I mean? I think it bothered viewers that the Hangover 2 was like, oh, it's another wedding, oh, it's another bachelor party. I think that ran stale. You could still have that comedy, but with a fresh concept. So, I don't know, even if it's maybe Maya Rudolph's character giving birth, and it's something like something fresh, something new, not stale.
So you would be okay with Megan being the lead and having them follow her life?
She'd be the aunt. I mean, for
the
Melissa
crazy
McCarthy
aunt.
to be the crazy aunt in a hospital when Maya Rudolph is giving birth.
No, but at the same time,
all fine, pain. You gotta listen right here.
It took 6 minutes.
We just gave you your concept.
6 minutes to get it.
You guys, I think we do have a guest.
But we do have a guest. Her name is Ashley Rickards from American Horror Story.
Oh my
Amazing.
goodness.
Hey.
You guys.
We are doing really well, and we were just talking about Bridesmaids and everything about it from whether there's going to be a sequel. So,
There should be.
Would you go see it?
Of course I would. Are you kidding?
Sequel.
Yeah.
That's what we're all
Okay,
saying
but
too.
if you saw a sequel, we were talking about how Hangover 2, I don't know if you saw that, it wasn't as strong as the first one. So if you were to see a Bridesmaids 2, what would you want to see out of it? Do you want the same characters? Do you want Kristen Wiig? Do you want Melissa McCarthy?
Of course I do. Yeah, absolutely. Sequels are always hard that way because people just drive the expectations double the original, so people inevitably always end up disappointed. But I think for the most part they're pretty good, and people just judge it from the last one.
And could you see Melissa McCarthy's character being the focal point of a sequel? Do you think that would work? Totally, right?
She's
I
like,
think
hell
she's,
yeah.
She is strong enough to be able to hold her own, whether or not she's the aunt, I think.
She's a chameleon, for sure.
Speaking about that scene on the plane that you guys love so much, her with the leg up and
And that's her husband in real life, and that's what's so funny.
I love that. I think
what
that's
was
so
your
great.
favorite moment? We were talking about our favorite moments. We love the airplane, obviously.
That's my favorite.
Okay.
The airplane scene.
The airplane was great.
Lost my mind.
But
great.
it's almost so awkward. I was saying you want to turn it off because you feel so uncomfortable, but it's like
I
you
didn't.
can't.
I didn't know. I just wanted to keep going.
And we were comparing the movies like Knocked Up 2, for example, and Hangover 2 in comparison to Bridesmaids. And do you think that the two have competition? They're saying male comedians, female comedians. Female comedians not so much. What is your opinion on females doing their whole ensemble cast like that and pretty much running it? Do you think that females can hold their own?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think to question it is a problem that we're facing in this industry. I for one, did a movie where it was a very low budget film, and all our department heads were women, and it was the most peaceful, cohesive, productive set I've ever been on, and all those women I'm really close with still. I think it's really hard in this industry to be a hard ass and not be seen as a bitch.
So the men are screwing us up.
I mean,
We should get rid of them.
I mean, some of them.
We've known that forever, though, right, ladies?
Some of them.
Just kidding. We love some of them. Maybe. No, we're
And
not.
now, American Horror Story is like the complete opposite because it's scary and comedy are kind of like you're trying to get an emotion out of someone. Could you do the comedy? Could you do improv, ad-libbing? Because that was so much of this film.
Yeah. I'm on a show called Awkward on MTV, so it's a dramedy. So yeah, we do a lot of jokes on that show.
How does the ad-libbing process work then in scripts? So does it just say ad-lib now?
Like, feel free to say what you want here.
Are there certain sections
something
where you
funny.
can ad-lib, or you have the freedom to pretty much ad-lib where you want?
Yeah, it just depends on, first of all, the production. On the MTV show, we don't ad-lib. It goes through a pretty strict process with the network to see what we can and can't say, and it's pretty precise. With Struck by Lightning, which is Chris Colfer's new movie, Brian Danley was all about the ad-libbing, and we spent so much time. You know the blonde with the tattoo in Bridesmaids? Mm-hmm. And the peas?
Oh, the one that's
Rebel Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh
She's in this
That was
movie.
great too. That was a great
With
movie.
the worm.
She's in the movie.
The
Mexican dancer.
Mexican drinking worm.
And she's hands down the funniest female I have ever worked with.
Really?
We spent an hour. She had 2 lines in the scene, and we spent an hour just watching her say random stuff.
What does her voice
that's
really sound
amazing.
like? Because in this movie, it's hysterical.
Yeah, her voice sounds a little bit like that. She's super nice.
Did she give you any scoop from the set?
No, I didn't ask. I was just too busy. Like, I was really trying not to screw up her takes. Everyone was. I mean, Chris Colfer, Brian Danley goes, "Do you need another one, Rebel?" And Chris goes, "I need one." We all were like losing our minds.
Wait, so since you know ad-libbing, watching Bridesmaids, can you tell when they're going on script, and can you tell when Kristen Wiig or any of them are just doing their own thing?
That's a really interesting question.
No, I don't. I think if it's done well, you can't tell.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
Paul
what they say.
Feig really wanted everyone to feel comfortable on Bridesmaids, and he says a lot of times, dealer's choice. You know, you do what you feel is good and for the scene, and we'll edit it out later if it doesn't work. But he said, you know, sometimes really fantastic stuff comes out of doing that, and if it doesn't work with the story, the editors will make it work later. So also,
Or
Paul
put it
Feig,
in the credits.
Right, and Paul Feig wants that comfortable. He wants that comfortable environment on the set, so that you know the actors feel free to use their actors' toolbox. Do you feel like tense sometimes on the scene? Is there sometimes the directors you rather work with because it's a more free and less tense environment?
Absolutely. Every director works differently, and I've had the opportunity to work with all types of directors, and so yeah, there are ones that I definitely am walking around on eggshells with, and there are ones that I go to dinner and a movie with on Sunday night.
Right.
It
So
just
is it
depends.
easier for you to do a performance
Oh, of
when
course.
it's a free environment like that? Does the director ever allow you to sort of go off and ad-lib and not exactly say what your lines are, or the shows you do pretty intense?
With American Horror Story, I mean, I had a gun shoved in my face, so it was kind of like scream where you will. We're not going to tell you where. And then with Awkward, it's pretty strict. You got to stay on the page. But with the movies, there's a lot of improv, a lot more freedom.
And now, finally, if you were to cast anyone in a Bridesmaids 2 that wasn't in the original, what's a female comedian you would like to see join the Bridesmaids crew?
Desi Lydic,
Who's that?
she's on my show. She's a very, very, very funny woman.
Okay, so Bridesmaids crew, if you're listening, take note. She should be in a Bridesmaids too. But thank you so much for
One
joining
more
us.
thing to know, American Horror Story is the #1 download on iTunes for AFTERBUZZ TV.
So you have to tune into that
Yes.
one if you haven't
Number
seen it.
one
I'm on
download.
it, so I've
So
seen
you're
it.
doing it all the time.
Yeah,
Let's grab a picture and then we can continue on with
Awesome.
Bridesmaids.
This is a very small stage.
I love your glasses. I should try to do
Good thing you're small. We're all like under. Roxy's the tallest at 5'3".
I know, I wore Converse today because it was not in a real situation.
Show some love and squeeze in.
What?
No, you don't have to get on their after show though, right?
Hey everyone, if you're listening on the audio, we're taking a quick picture.
No.
You haven't, that's right, yeah.
You have to come in the studio, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So much. Have a good one.
All right, so.
I was gonna say, I love when the
You guys,
directors.
I'm here to interrupt again. Erica Tazel from FX's Justified is here and ready to come on. So
Wonderful. Great, wonderful. Hello, Erica. So we were just talking about the casting process and also the director and how he can let the actors play around and improv and all of that. And I was going to say how wonderful it is when a director doesn't say no to his actors ever.
Right.
He says, you know what, you try this, and it might not, if an actor has an idea, it might not work. It might be the most ridiculous idea, but when the director says, you do it and I will tape it, and if it works, I will put it in there.
Right. I think that's great. It's a gift to the actors to say, you know, go out there and play. And if it fails, it fails. But if there's a happy accident, we at least taped it and we got it on tape.
Exactly. And as an actress, you know, it's nice to feel like you have artistic abilities and that somebody's respecting that.
Well, half of what we do is play.
Right.
And sometimes in play, you fall down and you get back up. And sometimes in play.
Unbelievable quote. I'm going to use that all the time.
And now, speaking of the differences in budgets for different movies, do you feel as though it's ever a difference between maybe like men and women? Maybe men films get more funding for certain reasons Do you ever feel like that in Hollywood? That it's harder for women to get their movies made and more funding for them?
I think so, but I think there's absolutely a change that's happening with movies like The Bridesmaids and The Help, where you have a predominantly female cast, and 2 of those women, 3 of those women, 4 of those women are nominated for Academy Awards. And the movies did really great in the box office, so I'm hoping personally that there's going to be a shift that we can carry films. Because I don't know if we've donned a female movie star in a long time. I mean, the first person that comes to mind is Julia Roberts, and they put money behind her, and it was successful. So it'd be nice to see not just one, but a few of them be crowned in their
And now we have to ask you, what was your favorite Bridesmaids moment, the funniest moment hands down of the whole film?
I have to say it was Melissa in the airplane with her husband.
The airplane, like a lot. We're taking tally. So far, that's 4 votes for
What
the
about
airplane.
the airplane, though? I mean, I personally really liked when she went
When
back.
she put her leg up on the wall. And I just learned last night that guy was her husband, so it's even funnier now.
Did any of you guys see at the very end of the movie, they had a scene with them in bed?
Yes.
Melissa McCarthy,
With the
did you guys
sub and the
stay
meat
watching
cheeses.
the credits?
She's eating a sandwich off of his stomach, and she's like,
Is it the girls or with her?
It's at the end by the credits, when the credits are rolling. You know,
I have to do
sometimes
that
they
again.
show
Yeah.
little scenes.
I have to do that
And
again.
she
over
says,
there, yeah.
she says into the camera, "This is our first sexual encounter," and then he's naked laying in bed, and she's eating a sandwich off of his stomach. It was priceless.
Wait, do you guys remember what she said with the sandwich? She
I
said
don't.
something like,
I don't remember.
"Ooh,
I don't
I have
remember.
a big something sandwich," and like placed it on.
I have to go back
Scenes
to
that we
that.
didn't see necessarily. Wasn't there a scene with Paul Rudd that
There was.
taken out?
And you know what's funny is somebody of his dynamic,
Yes.
you don't think would end up on the cutting floor, right? They said that during the test
It happens
screens.
to the best of us.
They said during the test screens, like, everybody really loved Paul Rudd. He's a great actor, and they weren't expecting him, so everyone kind of got crazy. But I did watch it, and it was sort of about, you know, she's on a blind date with
I
Paul
see.
Rudd. Everything's perfect at first until, like, he becomes a rageaholic. And that happens in real life, too. You know, you're dating someone, they seem perfect, and then they show you they're crazy. That happens to me all the time anyway.
Do we think that if they kept Paul Rudd's scenes in, that there wouldn't be a Nathan, an Officer Nathan Rhodes?
Well, that's what I was going to
That's a
say.
good
It didn't
question.
really tie in with the story. It gave less credit to Rhodes.
Right.
Yeah.
And why would she be going on blind dates when he was really the love interest in the story?
And that's a testament to whoever edited and directed the film, that they were able to stay focused on the female aspect of the story.
Right.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
also it was already a very lengthy comedy. We saw it was 2 hours and 5 minutes.
It's normally, comedies are normally an hour and a half tops. This movie was 2 hours and 5 minutes. They shot 1,000,000 feet of film, 100 hours, and edited
Wow.
down to 2 hours.
Well, with that
But that's what I think
cast, I'm
was
sure.
so funny, because you never got bored during it.
I was going to
And-
say that. They
Yeah.
probably had a 90,000 feet of funny footage, and they probably had the great dilemma of trying to figure out what do we keep and what do we
But I
put
mean,
on the
even with
floor.
improv, and I'm sure you know as an actress, improv is so hard, and a lot of times they let the scene roll, and then they'll cut it where they want to in post. So it's kind of interesting that those scenes didn't get boring, because they were running off script,
Yeah.
and that was all that.
And now finally, I just have to ask you, we were talking about if there were to be a Bridesmaids 2, who would you cast? Who, didn't make the Bridesmaids crew the first time around that you'd like to see?
I honestly haven't thought about
It's a
that
hard
because
question.
Yeah, it's
I
a hard
want to.
question. I mean, if there's a female comedian, or John Hamm was great. Do you want to see Paul Rudd?
You know who I want to
I would
see?
love to
Jane
see
Lynch.
Paul Rudd.
Jane
Oh,
Lynch.
Jane Lynch.
What do you
She's
think?
funny.
She's pretty funny. I
She's
like
funny.
her. But then again, sometimes she's in the same role over and over, so maybe it's good to have
She
her
could
on
be
the-
like Megan's best friend in the movie.
Exactly.
I like the
Melissa
idea of John
McCarthy's best
Hamm
Yeah.
though, being a love interest. I like that idea very much. Yeah, and he's a funny guy, which is a nice to see
Should
the
we write
opposite
our
of
own
John.
script?
Let's do it.
I don't think I can do it. I don't think I really could.
Well, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
input,
Appreciate
and
it.
thank you
Where
for
do we
joining us.
find
We
you?
love Justified.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Tuesday nights on Justified
Okay.
FX.
Twitter?
I'm not on
You're
Twitter
not- you're
yet.
not Tweeter?
I'm contemplating and playing with that idea.
You gotta do it.
I
I crossed
hear.
over to the dark side. You
I
gotta
know.
do it.
Yeah, we all did.
Do you mind taking a picture with us before you go?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thanks, ladies.
So nice.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, so we've been asking about casting a second film. I think that the same casting director should be at the helm. It was Allison Jones who cast Knocked Up, and Judd Apatow uses her over and over again for his films, and that's why you see the same circle of people coming over and over again. And that's why actually a lot of the main characters didn't even have to audition. I mean, obviously Kristen Wiig never had to audition because she wrote it. Maya Rudolph never had to audition. Melissa McCarthy and cousin Rita, who is Wendy McLendon-Covey. She is based in improv, groundlings. They knew her well. She didn't even have to come in for an audition. But what I love so much about her is she said that she wanted to be like a mother who feels like a mattress that vacuums and does laundry. And you can tell she did a lot of improv because she based it off of conversations that she heard eavesdropping on other mothers
Which is
at
the
lunch,
best thing
at
ever.
shopping.
That's amazing. I love that technique. I think
never
that's
know.
the best real life experience.
Right, exactly. What you can learn by just keeping your ears open. Keeping your eyes and your ears open and trying to figure out, and that's how really you get into a role.
Right,
I mean,
and comedians do that as well. Sometimes they take time off just to get that real life experience so they can talk about it in their stand-up routines. So
mimicry sometimes and comedy really works.
Yeah, and she was so good just as like that mom who hates her life, and what's so important with the casting is the chemistry of the people playing off each other. And I think the most important chemistry she had was with Ellie Kemper. Ellie Kemper, who plays Becca, because she's the newlywed. She's still in the Disney honeymoon phase, and you have her playing against this woman who's been married 15 years, hates her life, and, going back to the airplane scene, when she makes out with her, and because, like, she's so sexually free, and Ellie Kemper is so, like, sexually, like, tight, you know what I mean? The two of their chemistry was so important.
I was going to say absolutely
polar opposite.
Polar opposite.
Sorry to interrupt, but not really, because John Ratzenberger from Cars 2 and Cheers and a bunch of other shows.
Hey!
Welcome!
Hi!
How's everybody?
We're great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Real good.
So did you see Bridesmaids?
Oh, I thought they were talking about Bridesmaids Revisited. So, did you see that?
Oh, no, I don't know. But
Bridesmaids?
Bridesmaids Revisited. That was good.
I think I
saw
dreamt of that
Bridesmaids,
last
The film
night.
was originally called Maid of Honor.
Right.
Huh?
And now then it was Bridesmaids. I prefer that title much better.
Yeah, okay, I'll let them know. Great.
Okay, so we were just talking about the chemistry between some of the actresses. What did you think? How did they play off of each other?
Well, they made me laugh, so that means it worked.
So it worked. That's awesome.
Yeah, when it doesn't make you laugh, that means it doesn't work with the chemistry. That's
if
why I
you
always
notice it.
Well, also, I always, when I see a movie, in the first 20 minutes, if I don't care about somebody in that screen, I just leave.
Right.
It's very
You've
interesting.
got to care about somebody in the movie.
The character development is the number one thing to any story.
What's that?
So the character development.
Yeah, you have to actually care whether somebody gets hit by a bus or not.
Which is why
And
we
what's
see-
so important in this film is that I know it's an exaggerated version, but there's someone that every person can relate to.
There you go.
Either the frazzled mom or the newlywed who doesn't know what she's doing with herself. Can you relate to anyone in this film? Maybe like the male version of a
Or
Kristen
you,
Wiig.
you have these people
The
in your
cop,
office.
Officer Nathan. Okay.
Absolutely.
So are you like the
that's
shyer type?
No, I carry a gun.
Oh, all right.
No, because I understand. Here's a nice guy comes into her life, and like unfortunately, there's probably a lot of women like that. There's a real good guy that'll be with you through thick and thin.
Right.
Bring you soup when you're sick.
So used to being
I'm
And
glad
then-
you said you related to him and not John Hamm's character.
Oh my god.
Oh.
That would have been not
Wants her
fun.
to take lap naps whenever she feels like it. I don't agree with that. that spoke from large for his
And
character.
his first quote of the entire movie, which is, "Wow, this is so awkward. I really want you to leave, but I don't really know how to say it without sounding like a dick."
Take
Well,
a hint,
you just
ladies.
didn't sound like a dick.
Yeah.
Sorry, it didn't work
Could
out.
you, from a man's perspective, I mean, did you understand the jokes? Did you think it was as funny? Because every female I know loves this movie. So I'm kind of like, did you want to go see this movie? Were you dragged
Right.
there? From a man's perspective, how did you see
Well, I
this
live
movie?
in a small town. It was the only movie playing. so I don't have any
Especially
choices.
because the female audience in attendance, I mean, it was mainly female. I think it
Oh,
was
I
65
go
to
with
35.
here's my females right here.
Did she like the movie?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure
you like
she
the movie, did you?
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you know what you're so good at is making us laugh on the fly, and that's what's so important about this film.
How do you do that?
We could stick you in a Bridesmaids too, because we've been asking, who would you put in a Bridesmaids too? But you're great at improv. It looks like to me. I mean, ad-libbing.
Unless he actually has a gun on him, and then it's not funny.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's not a big gun, so you're safe.
It's
No.
But like, what is it behind improv and ad-libbing? Did these girls get it right?
Yeah, especially unfortunately, I forgot the name. Mike and Molly.
Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, I'd love to work with her.
Yeah.
Why she's nominated?
Just because you don't know what's going to come, but it's like playing tennis. You don't know where they're going to hit the ball, but you're ready.
And you know, we've talked to a few other people today asking the same question. If you were going to cast a Bridesmaids 2 sequel, who would you put in that cast for a sequel? If they weren't going to keep the same character.
Is this after she's married?
Yeah, I guess so. It's after she's married.
Kristen said she would it would begin the movie with her in jail, and Rhodes said she would have moved on because she was kind of slutty. If there was a Bridesmaids 2, she said that's how she saw it.
Oh, God.
Who would you bring in, though, if you knew of any actors that you think would fit perfectly in this movie?
Do they have to be alive, living, or?
No, you can bring in everybody in.
Yeah, we can bring them back.
Elvis Presley.
Oh, then I'd say Wallace Berry, James Cagney, and Mickey Rooney. Now, you don't know any of them, do you? You do not.
So what qualities do you think they would bring to the table?
All good people, huh?
Oh, they were good actors, and James Cagney can tap dance.
Good timing.
I think you should bring in actors that can tap dance for the sequel and play the banjo, because...
Very interesting take.
Yeah, well, either of those things, if you do either one of those things, you can't get sad. Imagine a sad banjo player or a sad tap dancer.
Well, it could be funny.
I mean, that wouldn't be as entertaining. That's all I feel like.
You don't think so?
If they're sad.
I better rewrite that script then. And I was about to.
Really?
I was going to submit a script.
Well, you just better make it good, and then I'll come see it anyway.
It's going to be called Banjo and Tap Dancers Ahoy.
You can prove me wrong. That's okay.
You said you related most to Rhodes, the officer. He is actually an Irish character, and he auditioned with an English accent. But then Judd actually said he melted whenever he heard the Irish accent. Everybody else just thought it was okay. So they decided, it was very cute, and so they let him do the Irish accent in the film. Can you do other accents, and how does that impact your
your Irish accent?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
He does the voiceovers. You got to be able to do like
Yeah,
versatile.
well, I lived in Europe for 10 years, so I picked up a lot of those accents. A Scottish accent. And then a little further south in England, East Anglia, they talk like they have more of a softer accent. Go, you got the time, boy? Do you have the time? And then in Cornwall, 60 miles the other way from London, it's, are you all right, are ye? So that's 3 different accents within 80 miles of each other.
And now finally, what was your favorite moment of the film? Was it the airplane scene? We all love that. Was it, her with Officer Nathan, who you love?
Well, I liked it when Officer Nathan finally said, look, you idiot, you got the whole world in front of you. It's because life is only about choices.
When she pulled over in her car, you mean, and he's like, fix your tail light, finally.
Well, but you have choices in life. What shoes to wear, what toothbrush to use, and the bigger choices of who to spend your life with or not.
Yeah.
And it's all her choice. And so when he gave her that talk, I thought, yeah. That's exactly what it's all about.
And now, being here this weekend, it's Oscar weekend.
Yeah.
You're doing well with acting. Can you tell us a little bit about Cars 2?
Yeah, it's again, it takes place. A lot of it takes place in Europe and overseas. It's kind of like a spy thriller, James Bondy-ish. But the nice thing about Pixar, I've been working with them now 18 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Before any of you were born, I guess.
No,
I wish.
I was in the stroller, but
Thank you. That's very nice of you, though. We appreciate it.
Well, I try. But they do things the old-fashioned way. They just work really hard at the story.
Right.
They get the story right before they do anything else. And that's the way movies used to be made. But Pixar, they keep that tradition up, and That's why it's such a joy to work with them.
And do you prefer working in animation as opposed to actually being on set? Like, how is that for you? What do you prefer doing?
Two different sensations. You know, animation, you still have to do the action in your head, but you're being on set. There's something magical about being on set.
Right.
You got all the activity and the friends and the people, and
I love that you describe it as magical.
it really is.
Loving what you do.
Can you ad-lib at all when you're doing
Yeah,
animation? You
absolutely.
can ad-lib and improv
they sort of rely on me for that.
Oh, that's great.
That and when I was doing Cheers too. Cheers was a TV show that was on back in the 1800s.
We all know Cheers.
And they used to let me make up those lines
Wait,
too.
so where can we find you? Do you have Twitter? How can
Twitter, yeah.
Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
John Ratzenberger.
Simple enough.
So make sure to follow you.
It's like me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will be sure to follow you. And would you mind taking a picture with us before you go?
Okay. Do a charcoal sketch if you like. Okay. Or do we stand it
We
up?
won't take that long to do a sketch. Maybe next.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Hey.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you so much.
Oh, very neat handwriting too. You went to good schools.
He just said we went to good schools. Thank you.
I don't teach handwriting anymore.
We have our research. Everything's down. We
So
write well.
we were talking about casting, and we find this in all the Judd Apatow movies. It's kind of like incestuous, like this little circle of if you make it in a Judd Apatow movie once and you're funny, you're in again. And even the people who aren't the SNL comedians like Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig. I mean, Rose Byrne, the reason he chose her is because she's not a comedian. And he said he wanted, the director said he wanted someone who didn't know improv, who was a more real, like, when she talks, it's like a Steve Carell type of comedy. What they're saying is straight and dead on, and it's not meant to be funny, but it is. But the reason they chose her is because she was in Get Him to the Greek. And then the reason they chose Officer Nathan was because he was in Gulliver's Travels with, what's his name? Jason Segel, with Jason Segel.
Right.
And so he was a relative unknown. Now he was in a British comedy called IT Crowd. People overseas over here don't really know much of it, but he said that he thanks Jason Segel for helping to get him the role because Judd Apatow called around and said, hey, what do you know about this guy? And he said, oh, he's great.
And he also said that he likes being unknown, didn't he? That he doesn't mind walking onto a set and people are like, who is this guy? He's like, I'm going to prove myself and show you who I am.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is television will take on any character, anybody, and when it comes to movies, you kind of have to do well on TV first in order to transition to the movies. And at this point, I'm sad to say that I kind of think TV is doing better than movies are. I mean, with all the comedies out, why are there not laughs all throughout the comedies like there were in Bridesmaids?
There are a lot of celebrities, especially this year. Everyone's going to have to stay tuned, but a lot of celebrities that already have pilot deals with major networks that will be coming out within the next year. So
people who are usually in movies and huge,
a lot of stars
films are coming back to television.
But
movie stars merging into television.
What I also loved about this film is some of the biggest stars of the film, or biggest stars, had the smallest roles in the film. But those small roles were great. I mean, I want to talk quickly about Annie's mom, who's Jill Clayburgh, who is a very famous actress. This was her last film. She passed away right after this film. But her in the film as that kind of like hippie mom. What would she do? Was it drawings? Those like crazy caricature drawings? Remember the cartoon drawings? Didn't she do that of all the celebrities?
Yes, and they actually had to get those approved of the celebrities, and some of them did not approve of the artwork.
Oh my God. But like, what a small role, but it was, you know, pivotal to Annie as a character's development. And also John Hamm, who is, I think, by far the biggest celebrity to be in the film, just from Mad Men and everything.
Yeah, of course.
Such a small role just in the beginning and a little bit sprinkled throughout. But he's so pivotal in it because he sets up Annie into this, like, depression and not knowing herself that well and being unsure of herself. But what was so funny is when they cast John Hamm, they said, we're trying to bring him down to our level. He's so handsome. You gotta think of a reason to hate this guy. And we really fucking hated him.
They actually
You don't have to
said
filter
that
it's true.
they actually filmed him being a lot meaner to Kristen and saying horrible things. But because Kristen is such a likable character, they had to edit it a different way for a different test screening because people didn't laugh at him being so
then
mean
it's not
to
funny
her.
because people can probably relate and understand that that's not nice.
Right.
You know, it's not funny. It's
It brings us
past
to
point.
it's past that. It brings us to the opening scene where I already read my quote from it and everything's going on and he's such a dick and kicks her out, which I thought that they did such an unbelievable job choosing the music to go along with this, and she's jumping over the fence and they're playing Rip Her to Shreds, which is amazing, Blondie, and she's like jumping over the fence and getting out of there and she can't get out, and then the white thing starts moving, and I thought that was just hysterical.
And I know we've been talking about ad-libbing and improv and how important it was, but really the writing was, you know, an essential part of it. Yes, you can say insert your own character here, but you gotta have the format of it. So, I mean, Annie Mumolo, how pivotal was she and Kristen Wiig in what they wrote?
I mean, Annie was grounded here in Los Angeles while Kristen Wiig was off shooting SNL in New York. So what actually happened is Kristen Wiig would fly back to meet with Annie, and they actually, she'd fly back on the weekends.
She even went to Mexico to meet with her.
They actually had Thanksgiving together at Maggiano's at the Grove and spent the entire 2 weeks writing there. And Annie, so they would have the script and they would send it to Judd for notes, and Annie would actually get the notes. She'd be at Subway and she would pick up the call, and by the time she was done writing, she would just have like 20 napkins, she would say, that she would have to go home and edit the script from.
They should save those Subway napkins and auction them.
Right.
I put them on my wall, definitely.
So never writing before. They actually wanted to look at it as that they were writing 20 sketches because they both wrote sketches before for all the improv that they've done. So they looked at it as 20 sketches, and it really comes across that way on film because every scene is so hilarious. It could be its own standalone sketch.
You know, all these actors, you know, they're phenomenal in this. It was a great cast, great people working together, and we do have some nominees this year for the Oscars. We have Best Supporting Actress Melissa McCarthy, she's a nominee, and Best Original Screenplay is Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo. So they're all doing well this year, I think. They have some nominations, which is great. And I know there's been a lot of critic reviews, so I think we should kind of like close it out with any of our favorite critic reviews that we found during our research. Do you guys have anything? I think you did, Mari.
Yeah, it was a New York Times review, and I think it got to a lot of the criticism of, we're talking about how it was like a female-run comedy. Sorry, I can't find it right now.
I actually have one, so you look for yours and I'll do mine. So from filmcritic.com, Jason McKiernan said, the film almost represents the Bechdel test in reverse, except it also features male characters with real motivation and full arcs. What results is not a feeling of girls playing at a boys' game, but rather the girls stealing the game and reinvigorating it with quirky energy, sharper comedic insight, and subtle depth. I think this completely wraps up why Melissa McCarthy is nominated, why it has Best Original Screenplay. It completely wraps it up.
You know, I really want to talk about the editing for 1 second because it did not get a nomination. And you know, I want to know why it's harder to edit a big scene, an action scene in Terminator, and the Oscars do not see that it's as important as editing delicate
for comedic timing
for a comedy. Because in a film like this, there were 100 hours shot, and the editors have to go through that and almost find the story because, like I said, they had to take stuff out of some scenes and add it to other scenes to make sure that the story continuity was there above all. And the editors had to find that within everything.
And I wonder if these editors even have a comedic background where they have enough knowledge to be able to do this. I mean, it's a craft to edit and to also know when to cut.
And also, just as important as the editing and making the movie flow is the music. And the music here, like, what girl music? Like, I loved this soundtrack, especially the last performance. What's the song in the end?
The one that they're doing the whole time is Hold On by Wilson Phillips, and they start off and they end with that. And it's amazing. And on the soundtrack, they have a live version, they have a regular version. And you don't want to love the song because you know you're bobbing along to a girly song, but you're like, and we've got the Britney Spears song in there, and we're like jamming to it. So I thought the soundtrack was amazing too and didn't get enough credit. And it's something that I've been listening to in the shower, in the gym.
It's like the Rocky Eye of a Tiger for a female. I love the DVD playing, like the DVD menu music always annoys me all the time. That's a huge pet peeve of mine. Not on this one. There's lyrics, it's catchy, it's so powerful.
Absolutely, and even that cover of Blister in the Sun that they did was so unbelievable and slowed it down and just, I was really feeling it. I thought that it helped the entire story keep moving along, and that's why it didn't feel like such a long movie, because they just keep us on our toes.
But I love that they brought in Wilson Phillips like for this at the end and did the performance, because for anyone who grew up in the 80s and all of anyone who was in this film did, what a big song that was, and they were just so funny to bring it back. And I think that
to see the band.
Yeah, and I think that of any of the big songs in the big movies this year, I think this one was, because I already saw this morning on ABC, all the cast of Good Morning America performed Hold On, just as they did in the Bridesmaids dresses, because that's a big part of the movie, and that's the best way to end out the movie.
If you know your song with your best friend, and it's your song, and it's just what connects you to, and this was like such a, here it is. And it was so funny at the end that Helen was the one who got the band there. Andy turned to her after they've already resolved everything and goes, really? And Helen's like, last one. It's the last one, I swear.
But the wardrobe, I think, also played into the soundtrack very well, especially with that last scene, 80s theme, yes? All the bridesmaids dresses were like they were from the 80s.
But I thought they were going to be the actual bridesmaids dresses from the billboards that we saw, the pink dresses, but they
You're right, actually. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, all the shots were really beautiful. Talking about the cinematography for a second, just, comedies are supposed to be highly lit with the keys, bright, vibrant colors, and this was cross-shot, so it made it harder for Robert Yeoman to actually make the cinematography as beautiful as he did, because you're shooting all angles to get that improv all the time. They didn't want to miss anything.
Right now, we're freaking out, throwing every single thing out there, because we know we're almost out of time, and we're like, I could talk about Bridesmaids for so much longer, so it's just, I feel like every part of this movie, every aspect was so good that I can't even imagine, if you took one thing away, what would you have to take away? I don't know how I could possibly pull the plug on something.
Like if I took a scene out?
No, like one aspect. What was there was no down part of the movie. It wasn't like, this part wasn't good, this part wasn't good. For me, it was every single thing was at its peak.
Right.
And that's what made the movie so great.
What they said, the best part of it for me was the fact that every scene had a huge emotional turn. It was like as if, Kristen and Annie wrote a script, and then Judd was like, how can we make this a bigger epic mistake? For the restaurant scene, the restaurant scene was always there, but then he added, what if they all got food poisoning? So pushing the characters to be stronger, making more mistakes, I think that is what heightened the realism and made it a great film.
The relationship between the director and the actors is so important, as we were talking about, having a safe place for them to play, and as you say, sometimes when you play, you fall. But that's okay, and just making sure that they feel comfortable to make you laugh, and then you are, I just thought
it's a more comfortable experience, for sure.
What I take away from it is I love that this film is Oscar nominated when it actually had a scene of Melissa McCarthy shitting in a sink, and that is going to be featured at the Academy Awards. And everyone has to watch the Academy Awards this Sunday, because the entire Bridesmaids crew is going to be presenting one of the awards.
Which is amazing.
I love that they chose them.
Just speaking of Melissa McCarthy, in that scene right before, one of my favorite quotes in the movie was, I won't apologize, I'm not even confident which end that came out of. Which is like,
they keep playing that over and over, and I love that that's like, it's like Octavia Spencer in The Help, and then the little cutout for her is, I'm not confident of one end that came out of. I love that that is like an Oscar.
And those were sound effects, right?
And we're going to see that on Sunday. We're going to see her scene when they play it on the big screen.
You know what though? They need some of that comedy in the Oscars, because everything else is so serious, I feel like.
No, we want to talk forever, but we really can't. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us. We are here until 6 o'clock today, covering all your Oscar favorites. This was Bridesmaid, our personal favorite.
And coming up next, Midnight in Paris.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.